Thank you so much, Joseph, for joining us on the conversation.
Well, thank you very much. First, I wanted to confirm that I'm in Lusaka, not Cape Town. We are very saddened by the passing of the former president. I don't belong to his party that he belonged to. I'm from the UPND. So the events over the past few days have been very unfortunate in that we lost one of our sons. In as much as we had political differences, he held the very highest office in our country, and he needed to be sent off with the very highest respects and the salutes to the Zambian army that he once commanded. So now we are having political differences in terms of where he must be buried and how he must be buried. It's very unfortunate. We never had such a situation in our country's history. So our President Hakainde Hichilema, has been very clear in terms of where President Lungu must be buried, which is here at home in Lusaka. He must lay amongst his peers and sleep at Embassy Park, which is our presidential burial site. But the events of the past few days have put our country in the spotlight in terms of the passing of former President Edgar Lungu, and there's been a lot of talk on the African continent in terms of what has been happening over the past few days.
Okay. Now, can you speak to us on the Gauteng High Court ruling that has halted, the Zambian, that's the burial of Edgar Lungu? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, from the very start, we are of the opinion that President Edgar Lungu must be buried here at home in Lusaka. He must rest peacefully among the Zambians that he once led, and he must be given the very last salutes, and his body must be driven through the Lusaka streets that he once drove on and that once paved way for his traffic to pass when he held the office of the highest land in our nation. So what happened in Pretoria today was never even supposed to happen in the very first place. We were not supposed to take each other to court over the burial of a former president. But then the politics have been happening over the past few days due to the pettiness of our Zambian politics, who've been having these things for quite a number of years. Even when President Chiluva and President Kenneth Kaunda had issues, such things happen in our Zambian politics. It's very unfortunate that it has come up now at such a time that we're supposed to unite together and put our differences aside. But what has come out of the Pretoria High Court is that now there's a ruling that is set forth on the 18th of July. We hope that between now and then we can come to a political consensus and that President Lungu can be flown back home and he can be able to rest among his peers, and that the Zambians, those that loved him, the Zambians that he once led, they can go and be able to pay their last respects, and that will be buried here at home in Lusaka, our capital city, and that Zambians can go in their numbers to go and offer their very last salutes to the man who once led them.
But that was actually what started the whole feud in the first place, the fact that President Hichilema said that he'll be standing by to welcome the body of, Lungu, but then, Lungu's dying wish was that the president should not be anywhere near his body. What does that say? What is the significance of former President Lungu's dying wish?
Well, first of all, we must dispute the propaganda, the political propaganda that has been going on. That President Hichilema said he wants to go and stand at the body of President Lungu. Look, as a president and as a sitting head of state, the president is supposed to preside over national events, and the passing of former President Lungu is a national event. It's a state event. And so what has been happening over the past few days is that we are hearing stories that President Lungu's wish was that our leader, the current president, President Hichilema, must not be anywhere close to his body, which is very, very unfortunate. But be that as it may, we must be able to respect the wishes of the family and be able to understand that, when somebody passes on that you loved, there could be a lot of emotions going on. People say a lot of things. But one of the wishes that President Lungu also had was that he must be laid to rest at home in Zambia. So in as much as there's also that wish of people saying he didn't want President Hakainde Hichilema to be close to his body, but his main wish was that he must be laid to rest here at home. So the issues of whether our leader and president must not be close to his body, that can be discussed once he's here at home, and we can be able to move forward and also respect the wishes of the family and ensure that our nation comes closer and puts one of its sons to rest, and that we can continue to fix the issues that matter for our people, which is unemployment and so many issues that our nation continues to face. But before that, we must be able to put one of our sons to rest, in spite of whichever political party we come from, in spite of all the differences that we've had. President Lungu held the highest office in our land, and he deserves the respect of us all.
Oh, absolutely, I agree with you on that, Joseph. But then, you know, the repatriation of Lungu's body was delayed twice. You know, on the 14th of June and again on the 18th of June over the funeral arrangement. So from a constitutional perspective, how common is it for family versus state disputes, you know, to stall a former head of state's burial?
Well, first of all, I must admit that from a constitutional perspective, I don't have as much understanding because I'm not a lawyer. I went to university to study political science. So I don't have full understanding on the constitutional stipulations. But as much as I know, President Lungu's first date of repatriation was supposed to be on Wednesday last week. And then there was changes. You know, the family decided that we're not going to do that anymore because of the fact that they believe that some certain agreements were not agreed upon after they had been made. And so another change was made because of that, they were not going to repatriate his body anymore and that he would be buried in South Africa. But according to the precedents that has been set in our nation, we have what is called the Embassy Park, which is the presidential burial site here in our capital. We go there to seek inspiration. There are historians, Zambian historians there that tell the stories of each president, the presidents that they led and our people and the history and the policies that they pursued. It is because of that that we want President Lungu to come home and be laid there alongside his peers so that his history and the policies that he pursued can be told by those historians there, and Zambians who seek to get inspiration from him can once in a while go there and understand the presidents that he once had and the visions that he once had, and that we can put aside all the political differences that we've had as a people and bury President Lungu in peace, and that we can move forward as a people to ensure that Zambia steps forward in helping our people achieve that which they deserve, which is a Zambia that is free, stable, and able to stand on its own 2 feet.
Well, that is the ultimate goal. Now, in practical terms, what are the diplomatic implications, of a former head of state being buried abroad rather than on home soil? Because some have actually said they see it as a breakdown of political civility. How damaging is it when rivalry continues even beyond the grave?
Well, first of all, we must understand that President Lungu was not a refugee. It's only refugees and criminals that get buried in another land because they're unwanted in their own land. President Lungu is wanted in our country. In as much as we had our political differences, he must be buried here at home. So he was not unwanted. He wasn't a criminal. Only the people that get buried in exile are those that are running away from a war-torn country. Ours is a very peaceful nation. We've been able to change Zambian presidents since 1991. The power has transferred successfully from one Zambian to the next. There are different Zambians who've gone on to lead our country and lived at our state house and took the oath to protect our country and led our people in their millions. And so President Lungu is one of those. He is not running away from a country that is war-torn. Zambia is a very peaceful nation. We've been able to have political transfers of power very peacefully without any drop of blood on our streets, whether it is in Lusaka or on the Copper Belt or anywhere in the countryside. And so he's not a refugee. He must be buried here at home with the very respect that he deserves, and the Zambian army that he once commanded must give him the very last salutes. And that the 24-gun salute must also be given to him as a former president of our country. And even as, our nation stipulates that we must be able to unite as one Zambia and one nation.
Okay. Now, earlier, President Hichilema had scrapped a planned 16-day national mourning extension, calling the indefinite mourning unsustainable. Let's have your thoughts on, the whole issue of, the indefinite mourning and also the president halting it. Since you've talked a lot about, how this burial and the death of the former president has affected Zambians, how do ordinary Zambians feel about, the president calling off the indefinite mourning?
Well, first of all, the law stipulates that the former president must be given a 7-day national mourning. And the former president, Edgar Lungu, was given those days as per stipulations of the constitution. But as time went on, there was a lot of dragging, and a lot of Zambians, particularly in the entertainment industry, began to complain that during the national mourning, they cannot be able to go on and obtain an income for themselves because, when the national mourning is declared, certain activities have got to stop, such as entertainment. People must not be in the bars at certain periods. And so those that are in the entertainment industry, especially the artists, they began to complain to say, okay, now that it's dragging forth and forth and forth as to when the former president will be buried, what will happen to their income? So the president did not suspend. What he said is that now that there's the time of his repatriation was changed, we must be able to go forth and have a discussion again to say how is the former president going to be brought back home. And so he decided that he was going to put an end to that, and that we can go back to the table and negotiate, because President Lungu is represented by his family, those that he loved, and also the political party that he belonged to. We must be able to negotiate. And so it was a negotiation team that was set forth with the secretary to cabinet, with the former vice president, and all other stakeholders from the church, so that we can be able to discuss the politics of our country, and President Lungu must be brought back home. And so we must be able to do away with the propaganda that is going on, that the president decided to abruptly suspend the national mourning. It was because of those activities that some artists and people in the entertainment industries were speaking about the issues that were now affecting them in terms of the prolonged period of national mourning, and without us having a consensus of whether the body of the former president is going to arrive or not.
So, now, his family also accused the government of initially blocking his medical evacuation for specialized treatment in South Africa, which is a claim that the government denied. Do you think that this raises any legal or ethical issues?
Well, former President Lungu, like I said, he belonged to a different party than many of us, like myself. I'm one of those that criticized him very, very harshly, to the point where members of his party even blocked me from his Facebook page. But that as it may, we are just in politics, and the political differences must never come into the face of death. When he dies, when any of us dies, we put aside all the differences and be able to mourn together. That is the nature of our Zambian politics, and we must pursue that. But in the face that this has happened, the family are also saying he was denied, the aspects of him going to seek medical help abroad. This has been happening in Zambian politics. Even former President Ropia Banda was once denied by former President Lungu himself when he was then Minister of Home Affairs. But we must put aside those things.
So you're saying that it is the same thing that Lungu did when he was president that happened to him, during his illness and after he died?
Well, such things happened, and we must not do it. We must not do it anymore. We must learn from our mistakes. And if we don't learn from those mistakes, then we are not going to be in a position to be able to transfer the Zambia that we seek to the next generation of our Zambian leaders. So these precedents must be broken down, and we must never be in a situation where we continue to persecute each other. Once one leaves office, we continue to persecute them. And so some of the concerns that are being raised by the family, we cannot completely override them and dismiss them as political play. They are also raising genuine concerns. At the moment that we dismiss them as politics, then we're not going to arrive at a conclusion that is the best for our nation.
Okay, well, you talked about, not the best for the nation, and this is the issue. A lot of international partners have actually observed that, this particular feud, the funeral dispute, is detrimental to Zambia's image. So if you could tell us, to what degree do you think such internal feuds undermines diplomatic ties or even foreign investment?
Well, I've lived in Zambia for 30 years. I was born, and this is my country. I've lived here, and I've known Zambian presidents have come and gone. Political parties have come and gone. Our nation has always been one nation that has been the center of the liberation struggle, especially in the Southern Africa. We have been known as a peaceful nation. But the events of the past few days and weeks have put our country in a spotlight for bad reasons, because some people are now beginning to think we can't even come together and set aside our differences to bury one of our own. It's very unfortunate, because there's a lot of people that look up to our country, especially with the history that President Kenneth Kaunda left for us. And so these issues that have been happening over the past few days have put our nation in bad light, and we must be able to fix those issues and come together, the government and the opposition, political parties, and all the players, so that we bury President Lungu and that our nation continues to be a beacon of hope, and that people can continue to look up to our country as one, where when a president loses power, the instruments of power transfer successfully from one hand to the next, just as we've always been. I believe that we can do that, and we must continue on that path.
All right. Now, Joseph, do you think that with this, because you talked about, events of the past few days or even weeks, do you think that these events, this divide would actually change how Patriotic Front supporters engage with next year's 2026 elections?
Well, in as much as we can dismiss them as noisemakers, President Lungu had political numbers. Anyone that decides to dismiss that is not being politically wise. We are a nation that has always had both the ruling party and opposition political party players. President Lungu had his numbers, and those numbers are sympathizers that voted for him. There were about 1 million of them 1.8 million during the last elections. And so they still believed in that he was a man that could be able to take our country forward. I don't agree with them. I never agreed with them. But we must be able to understand that, there's a lot of politics that is being played at the moment. And the death of former President Lungu is being put across as a political tool for others to gain political fame, especially to the masses of our people as we go for elections. We are calling upon young people especially to understand the politics of our country, and not just to understand, to also participate and engage in the politics, to go into the involvement of whether they want to contest as members of parliament or in the councils, or ultimately we must be able to support those agendas, and we must never use death as a weapon to be able to campaign towards the issues that our people face. So this death came at a very bad time, and it was unexpected, but be that as it may, this is a nation that has overcome its challenges, and we must be able to support each other going forward, and that we must put aside our politics now and bury President Lungu, and then we can do our politics after the burial is done.
All right. Now, still in that same, light, opinion polls in June showed a 15-point drop in Hichilema's approval rating since April. Now, do you think that the funeral saga, is contributing to that slump? If you agree with that, then to what extent?
Well, like I said, I belong to the president's political party. I'm a member of the UPND. I joined it when I was a 17-year-old boy. Now I'm 32, so literally half of my life I've been in that political party, which I love and I believe is the driving force to help our country move forward. In terms of the opinion polls, people always have opinions, and but we need to listen to them, whether those opinions vary in terms of how their living standards have either improved or not improved at the first place. If we completely dismiss those opinions that they have, then we're not going to be able to arrive at
all right.
the pace we want.
All right. We hear you there. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you please say something so we can hear your final
that we fix them, because...
All right. We lost you there for a bit. Please, let's have your final thoughts.
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Let's have your final thoughts, please.
Hello? Oh, okay, no. Thank you very much. So the final thought is that we must be able to put President Lungu to rest. He must be brought back home, and that we are a nation that has always buried his former presidents. We've given them the very respect that they deserve, and we've always been among the population, mentor the next generation of Zambian leaders. And from his death, others will rise and will continue to do that. Just like President Hichilema rose, others will continue to rise even in our party. And the death of President Lungu is a very unfortunate thing, and we must be able now to unite as a nation and put aside those differences that we've always had and ensure that it is buried peacefully. And then after that, we can be able to carry on with our politics.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Joseph, for your time. Joseph Kalimbwe, member UPND party and youth advocate. We appreciate you for your time.